This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 433 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and TotalSaddleFit.com. Today we have some advice for disaster preparedness. Endel will give us a great interview about his busy summer, and Caroline Roffman covers our trainer tip about juggling family and riding.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, how's it going? Jen, how are you doing?
Good. Jen's here too. Producer Jen, hi.
I'm hanging in here. I have neither floated nor blown away yet.
Yet. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys are prepared or preparing, and you're up sort of in the northern Florida area, so you're not quite right in the eye of the storm at the moment. Am I correct on that?
Well, the model currently has the eye going up closer to the east coast of the state, and we are centrally located. So depends on how it goes. We will know on Saturday night. There we go. But in the meantime, we've battened down the hatches and filled every available container with water, so we're good.
I believe that's what everybody says. Like, you need to be filling water and be getting organized. It sounds like that's the theme. And we're actually gonna have an interview. We added that to the show this week because we felt like it was really important for all you guys that are. We have lots of listeners that aren't only just in Florida, but they're in Texas and they're out west with the fires. So we hope that you can kind of take some of this information and it will help you. Certainly, if there's anything we can do, Phil and I are pretty good. This is a nice time of year for us in Kentucky. So same for you too, Phil, right? So
yeah, I mean,
if there's anything we can do.
Yeah, if there's anything we can do, we are just hoping and wishing everybody the best and trying to add our little piece of some advice and some information to help people prepare and to be safe during this time.
Yeah. So we're thinking about everybody and wish you guys all the best and good luck for sure. But with that said, we're going to have a fun show today. We hope you guys all enjoy. We did add an interview, which I think we all should listen to on sort of how to be prepared for a disaster. It actually sort of helped us here at the farm today. We kind of had a quick discussion on sort of what we would do if something happens. Yeah, make a plan.
Yeah, making a plan never hurts to make a plan, right?
Never hurts to make a plan, at least talk about it. So that was good. But yeah, we have a great show. Wait till you hear Endel Otts. After his interview, it made me also want to train harder and take a nap all at the same time.
He's been a busy guy this summer, and he talks a little bit about some issues that they had with the horse in quarantine, and so we really appreciate that because this is one of these things that could have happened to anybody. So it's a very interesting discussion on just quarantine procedures and issues that may arise. So I hope that people enjoy that part of the interview. And also he's been to every competition in the world this year.
I know.
Seems like. So
it seems like it. The big ones.
He was there. About. Yeah, he's a great interview. We love having him on the show, so we appreciate it. Yeah. And then just a little bit later, Caroline Roffman is going to join us. She's a recent new mom, so she's a competitor, and now she has 2 children, and she has some great ideas and tips about being a mom and also being a rider at the same time. So I think that's an important issue to cover. It's not one that I might have to deal with.
You have to deal with personally, huh, Phil? But yeah, no, it was great. So we have a really fun show. But Phil, we do have some news. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Central Park show?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it seems to be that they have decided to cancel the dressage part of the Central Park horse show. That's been going on. What was it, 2 or 3 years that they've held a pre-class there. They invite over all kinds of competitors from Europe to bring their top horses to compete, and I think it's been a successful show and exposing people who may not know anything about dressage by hosting this show in Central Park. All the New Yorkers get to come and if they like to come and watch the horse show, but this year they won't have it. They've had a few riders drop out for numerous reasons. And so now they've changed it to an in-arena eventing competition, still to be held at the Central Park Showgrounds. So that seems interesting, but we're really ashamed that they're not going to be hosting all of our top riders.
I know. It's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. So,
but we'll just wait for Florida, right?
People are, kind of between competition seasons, the indoor season, kind of coming to Europe, and people thinking about, Florida in November. So, kind of quiet in the barns and at the competitions these days, I think.
Yeah, it is pretty quiet. So we are going to come back. We're going to have a great conversation with Endel Otts right after this commercial break from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Researchers have confirmed that as horses age, they naturally become less sensitive to insulin and more susceptible to health problems caused by too much sugar in the diet. One way to reduce the sugar content in a horse's diet is to replace sugar-laden grains with a high-fat supplement. Fat is an extraordinary energy source. It is readily utilized by the horse and contains more than 2 times the calories of sugary grains. Equijewel Stabilized Rice Bran is an excellent fat supplement. It contains a balanced calcium to phosphorus ratio and won't cause mineral imbalances when added to the diet. Its all-natural ingredients are high in healthy fat and fiber. Best of all, Equijewel allows owners to easily replace the calories previously supplied by sugary grains. When you need to add healthy calories to your horse's diet, choose Equijewel. To learn more, visit Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
Well, tonight we are so happy to have a good friend of our show, Endel Otts on. He is an international rider, trainer, and frequent flyer. Endel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be back. It's always fun to hang out with you guys.
We love it. So you've been so great because you have been literally all over the world this summer, and we have lots to talk about. So can we kind of start? Where should we start? Europe? Let's start there. How does that sound?
That sounds good. We'll do it in the correct timeline. I think it'll be easier for you to remember.
Perfect. So tell us, what were you over there? Because you've played many roles at this point.
Yeah. So I went over there with a client to look at some horses for a little bit, and then Chase was showing in the Falsterbo Nations Cup in Sweden, and then I flew over there for that, and then came back here, helped coach BB Davis to team gold, and then individual gold at Young Riders, and then flew back to coach again. So the highest scoring U.S. rider at both Nations Cups, Chase Hickok and Sagacious in Hickstead, and then flew back here, and then had to get myself all organized and ready for Young Horse Championship.
Oh my gosh. So let's go back. Tell us, what was the Nations Cup like? I mean, that was so cool to we were watching it, Phil and I, from this side of the pond, and it was just so cool. We also know Chase. She's come on the show lots of times. So tell us, what was that like to kind of be over there?
I think what was really fun is I would say it was maybe a little bit, for me, it was a little bit, I was a little nervous. I couldn't let Chase see that, or of course, Sagacious noticed that. I was a little nervous. I had not, I'd ridden internationally, but I'd really never coached anybody. I had coached Stevie in Europe, but never an open Grand Prix rider. I'm an international class. So, it was a little bit, I was a little nervous. I had, a bunch of, very famous riders, and Patrick Kittle and a bunch of these people over there. So I was a little nervous in the beginning. But I have to say, once kind of after we go through the jog and we get kind of into our system and our routine, it was really, really fun, because it was a really fun feeling like that everybody fit in, and all the riders on both Nations Cup teams were just so awesome. I mean, you had a lot of veterans, like Susie Duda and a bunch of those people, and Catherine Bateson, and on these teams, and Charlotte Yoris, and I have to say, on both aspects of of being real team players on it. Everybody was great, and it was really fun to be able to, coach and help, and be able to see that, hey, we really fit in here, and that, once we got in a routine and we did the warm-ups and we planned out everything that, that we really fit in there. And then kind of after the first rides and the first day, you kind of stop being nervous and you get maybe a little more anxious, a little bit more excited. And it was a really awesome experience, I think, for Chase. And it was, she had shown in U25s, but never open Grand Prix, in Europe. And I think she had felt, that she had something to prove, when she and Sagacious had gone over there last time. Yeah, I think she, as do most people when they go over the first time, I mean, they had some bobbles and some things, and I think that had weighed on them a little bit heading into it. And I really, try to focus on making sure that, they just, they knew what was going on, and that, they have such a good relationship, and that we don't need to make anything better. We just do exactly what we've done all season, and just really focus on that. And I have to say, Robert Dover was awesome on everything, in being supportive and all that. And, we made some really awesome friends over there. And it was just a really, really super positive experience, I think, for Chase, and Sagacious, but then a really positive one for me. I had a little bit, you hear that saying that people say, if you're a good coach, you're not a good rider. If you're a good rider, you're not a good coach. And I had to literally get that out of my head and just say, no, I know what I'm doing, and not look at, all the first, but really just focus on, what I knew the whole team needed to do and needed to focus on and, accomplish. And yeah, it was just a super positive experience.
So I just wanted to talk about that, maybe with Endel and then Reese, because maybe you're like me, I am much more stressed to have a rider be going in the ring than me, myself.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
if anything goes wrong, for my rider, I just I almost have a meltdown. It's terrible, right? How do we deal with that kind of stress, being behind it? I know that parents deal with this, and, people on the ground, you feel like you have very little control over a situation that you really want all the control in, and to have your rider be successful. So how do you kind of deal with that, Endel?
Yeah. I mean, I'd kind of felt that with Bibi, in coaching her these last couple of years, and I've been a little used to that. And then I started to feel a little the same thing, with Chase and Sagacious, and them coming into my program. I don't know. I have a little silly thing. I'm not nervous until I'm sitting there and I can't do anything. And I watch the actual test, the warm up, I'm not nervous at all. But the second that they go in the ring, I have no more control. So I do a little silly thing. And I actually talk like I am still teaching, and I find that helps me a little bit. It makes me sound a little bit insane. And a couple people were asking me hey, maybe you got to talk a little more quiet. You sound like she has a radio in her ear or something, and so I had to be a little careful. But I found that really helped me to really just kind of, a little bit say, a little bit more forward, a little bit smaller here, a little bit that there, as she's riding. And actually it helped her when she watched the video afterwards, because, I had one of the things we worked on with Chase is that she doesn't like, as most of us don't like, watching ourselves on videos. And I really had to get after her that, no, you watch it, and it can't always be me just sitting there telling you how it looks. You need to see how it looks. And so that kind of helped. Then she could watch the video and then hear me on the, commenting on the video. And then it's not just after the fact, but then in a little bit real time. And then she could a little bit see the points where she had to go a little bit more forward, a little bit back. But I don't know. I have no idea how to make it feel much better when they go around the ring. But when I have no more control anymore, I mean, I wish I could just walk away and have somebody tell me how it looks. But,
exactly,
right? It just doesn't work.
Well, and that's just something to always remember, as we are coaches all the time, but people that aren't coaches, remember, your coach, we put a lot of ourselves in you, and we try so hard. I mean, I think everyone, if you're a good coach, is doing this. And
Yeah.
so it is so hard to put your person in that, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't help them anymore. Good luck. And so it is really hard. So be nice to your coaches, because we really do stress out for you.
We
And
suffer. Yeah, we
yes,
suffer.
it's very painful. You can see like your whole team is dying in the corner, for you. So it just shows how much you care, and how much of a team it is. And it really is everybody working together, and that just shows what a good coach you are. So Endel, can you tell us a little bit about, you guys had some big issues as you came back to the United States. It was in the press, and we're super glad you're going to chat about it. Sagacious actually got held in quarantine. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so I had, he was coming back, and Chase had used my truck and trailer, and she was gonna drive down to go pick him up, and then another sale horse that I had coming over from Europe, and she called me crying and a little hysterical, as you can understand, and she was telling me, oh, he's got glanders, and they got to send him back to Europe, and all this stuff. And my first, she was very emotional, and I always, before I react, I figure out what's going on. I don't really panic, I'm here and there, but not in that kind of stuff. So she called me and said that, and I said, first off, he doesn't have glanders, and relax, he's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. Just let me make a few phone calls, and I'll figure out this stuff. And then, I said, just pull over, go find a spot. I knew she was driving my truck and trailer, and she's not used to driving my truck and trailer. So I said, go find a place, go have a glass of wine, just relax. We'll figure it out. And then I hung up the phone, and I go, what the hell is glanders? I didn't know what the heck it was. I'd never heard of it before. And so I called. I have so many really great vet friends, as you do when you are in this sport. And I called everybody up, and everybody was like, okay, well, glanders is basically a biological weapon that was created by the Germans to kill people in villages. And they'd inject goats and then little ponies and drop them off in these villages, and everybody would die within like a week of getting this horrible kind of disease. And so every vet I talked to said, yeah, no, we've never seen it. You read about it in vet school. Basically, in going through the stuff, in the long story short on there, the USDA has a test that they test horses on. And when they test the horses, then they kind of come, they want the cheapest possible test, to test for the most possible things. And they only send it to one lab. And I've imported so many horses. Sagacious has gone back and forth from there. And, this test, in speaking with enough people, this test has had many, many, many false positives on there. And it happens actually quite a bit. One horse was a racehorse over in California, who actually, I have to say, Christine Traurig put me in conjunction with the article that the people put it through. His story was the horse came from Ireland. They tested the horse when it got to California, and then in California, the horse tested positive 2-3 times, and they said, we're going to kick it back to Ireland. Ireland said, no, if it lands here, we're going to put the horse down. We're not going to accept it back. So then USDA said, well, we're going to put the horse down here. And so they had a lot of fighting, and that horse ended up testing positive for this disease like 20 some times. And basically what you can have is, so this disease is, if your horse gets it, I mean, they're dead. Like you can treat them, but it doesn't get better. All the vets kind of off the record, were like, listen, your horse doesn't have it, and, if your horse had it, Chase would be actually dead right now too. So there's really no, it doesn't have it. But the problem is they can come in conjunction with some other horse that maybe has little sniffles and, something like that. And it can just come up that this kind of tests a little bit positive. So we worked with this lawyer from that Christine had put me in contact with, and they were amazing and so helpful and so friendly. And we got a lot of phone calls from everybody. And basically, USDA were going to make us, ship the horse back over to Europe. And the problem is that because we had tested the horse a couple of times here, we didn't have any guarantee from USDA that they would allow the horse back in the country. A lot of times when people have this disease, and I have gotten now emails, probably 15 to 20 people have emailed me and said, oh my God, I had the same problem. But, they just said, send it back to, Amsterdam, wherever, their testing is way more detailed, and we'll test it there, and then they always come back negative, and then you can ship it back. The problem is Sagacious doesn't ship so well, and that would be a lot of shipping for him to go back to Europe and then back here. And, we were very certain that the horse didn't have it. So we had a little bit stand our ground on there. And I have to say USDA, after, we had been a little bit more firm with what was going to go on, were super, super helpful and very friendly with everything. And the horses are great when they came out of quarantine. One thing we had agreed to do was there is a test called the Western blot test. And this is a very accurate test, somewhat being more expensive. We tested the horse for that and the Western blot will show if the horse has got glanders. The horse tested completely negative on there. So we knew the horse doesn't have glanders. But the problem is the way the law is written in the USDA and with the government agencies, they only accept this test. They only do kind of the very not shady test, but the little bit highly positive test. And that's the only one that they can accept, by the law. And so you need 2 negative tests of that to come back. And so we fell into this kind of gap between the law. So they luckily allowed us to keep the horse down in quarantine, $500 a day. But, it was way better and still cheaper than shipping it back and forth to Europe.
Back twice,
Sure, yeah.
And so the horse ended up, luckily when I was up in Chicago, tested negative on the Western blot test, and then also a double negative on the original test he tested positive in. And the whole time, the horse never had a temperature, never had any symptoms, never had anything, and then, they ended up delivering the horse and ended up everything kind of being fine. And I think the hard part is that everybody else was told the same thing we were told. This never happens, but it does happen. And, hopefully now that the word is out there a little bit more, there can be some sort of people that work on doing this, because I heard from a lot of people, and basically everybody just shipped their horses back over to Europe and had them retested there. And they always tested negative and then came back over here, and they allowed that negative test that was over there. So it was a little bit of a mess, and it was pretty funny. So after I told Chase, just pull over, relax, because I could tell how upset she was on the whole thing on that day. I said, yeah, just pull over, just relax, we'll get it figured out, and she calls me again in 5 minutes, and she's going to be so mad, I drove down a one-way street and I jackknifed your trailer, and now I'm all upset about that. And I go, like I said, just please pull over and just relax. It'll be fine. Who cares about the trailer? Doesn't matter, and so, it all ended up working out fine. But, it was a little bit, little hairy and,
it seems like there needs to be a policy change or something to go on to be able to use a better test and to have that be acceptable, at the cost of the owner, fine. But, it seems like the test that they use is not all that accurate, right? So that's terrible. That's too bad.
With that test in there, that was when we spoke with that lawyer from the horse from Ireland. He was surprised that we were having the same problem, because they were led to believe that that USDA had acknowledged that this is absolutely, we agree that this is not a good way to go about it. And then I think once that horse got through, nothing ever, nothing kind of came from it. It was just another time where no problem.
One horse doesn't matter, whatever, and carry on.
Wow, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, we are so glad he's safe and sound. I'm sure there was a lot of wine consumed. I feel like I need a glass before you guys. But so with this, all of this, you were training for the Young Horse Finals, right?
Yeah, I should have trained a little bit harder. I think I probably could have done a little bit better, but no, I was training for that and getting ready to show Lucky in there. I was. We were schooling and stuff and working on everything. And, I was really happy with him. I had a little bit, I should have probably, in hindsight, to do a little better. I normally would have done a show before I would do the young horses. And, the first time he ever did the pre-St. George test was in the championship. And I had a few mistakes in there, understandable from his part, being 7 years old and doing that. And on the first test, and then the second test was way better, and it was really good. I had two of the judges had me first, and one had me a little bit below that, and yeah, I just missed it out by point some percent. So I hate coming in second to anybody, but I was really happy for the girl that won. She really was super nice and really, really good in a super program with Catherine Haddad. And so, if anybody could beat me in there, then I guess it's okay if she does. But right before on the morning when we were walking our horses, I think she was below me on the first day. And then, I said, yeah, hey, have a good ride. Just, you can beat everybody else but me. And so she goes, yeah, okay, I promise. She goes, I promise I won't, I'll do that. And then, of course, she goes, well, I'm sorry. The first promise I ever made to you, I broke. And I said, well, I would try to break that promise too, But
yeah, she's not that sorry. Let's be real. Let's just be real here. Exactly. She's not that sorry. But that was great. She was
sorry, not sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. But she was a younger rider. And so tell us, what was the quality like this year? What was it like there? Just kind of give us a full.
It was really good, and it was really fun, and I had a real fun time being able to watch the young horses go, and you can see, I think, a lot of future team horses in the group, and no, it was it was really fun, and it's so great to be able to go to those championships because everybody in there, everybody is super supportive of everybody else, and it was a really, really fun experience.
So we've kind of been following along with Lucky Strike. I think we first talked to you after coming home from the 5-year-old World Championships or something like that. So just giving us an overview about the training and maybe his last year of riding, and how you decided to go to the Young Horse Championships, and just kind of what's going on with him. Tell us all about him.
Yeah, so with him after last year and the 6-year-olds, I actually wasn't planning on doing the developing Prix St. George this year. I thought, he's so good at the 6-year-olds, and he's doing really good, and he's a little bit of a bigger horse, and I just as a horse in there for the developing St. George, you can show a 7, 8, 9 years old, and I think the one that beat me was 8 or 9 or something like that, and he was 7, so I was working and schooling him, and I was ride a lot with Christine Traurig, and she was overviewing my videos, and I just said, Christine, I kind of want to do it. I don't really want to push him that hard because I really, my goal is, international competition and being on future U.S. teams. And I really didn't want to burn him out. And which is why I decided not to do the 7-year-olds in Europe. Also with teaching BB and in having Chase on my program this year, I knew that would not have worked in that program, so I kind of stepped it back on there. But he was really showing so well, and I kind of really went in there and just to listen, of course, to go and have fun and really try to win, but I really, I care about how that horse develops, and I really wanted him to, have a good experience and being able to show, what he can do and how he can compete with, and he's playing with all the Grand Prix now, and nothing super serious or super hard, but Passage is super easy, Piaf is easy, and I think my plan for this next season is finally to be able to go into the CDI small tour ring. I've been really jonesing to get back in there, and had a bunch of students in there. So you have to a little bit, I think, ride and train with a little bit some handcuffs on, and really make sure that just because you really want it, that you really keep the horse's perspective and where they are, and not to burn them out, and he's such a he's a real fighter for me, and he really tries for me in the ring, and I want to keep that part of him really positive and going forward.
So Endel, I think that's a really good comment, about sort of the young horse program. I think it gets a little bit of a bad rap, pushing horses too hard, or and I think just your whole comment there of you really have to read your horse, and you really have to decide, what is too much or what's not enough. And I think that's really kind of the the whole essence of that program, wouldn't you say? Or could you elaborate on that just as a general feel for the Young Horse program?
No, absolutely. I think that it's very, when I was in Europe, on this last trip to look at some young horses for some future competition horses. I mean, I rode a couple of the horses that actually were, some of the top ones that ended up. I think one was second last year as a 5-year-old, and a couple other ones, and in the World Championships, and I think that you really just have to know your horse, and you have to have a real clear goal. And I mean, I really, in my program and what I do for all my riders, I really try to have clear, 5-10 year plan goals. And we really kind of work backwards from there, and we reassess it, and we see, okay, if the horse stumbles, you have a little stumbling block at one horse show or something, I really try to keep the whole team in perspective, and I think that us as trainers have a real responsibility, for these horses to be able to look at them and say, yeah, okay, he can do it, and to look at, well, where you can push and where you can try, because on some horses, 7 years old doing the Prix St. George, I mean, that can be a lot to do. But last year that the other horse that I rode in the Young Horse Championships as a 6-year-old, I mean, he won the USDF national championship in Kentucky as a 7-year-old, and did the Prix St. George down there, a nice, super solid, clean test, beating a bunch of horses that were at the Young Horse Championships. And it's just, that one we had decided not to do the young horse stuff, and a little bit wait a little bit, and then he matured out a little bit more, and then I could do it later in the year. So I think really just, you got to really know your horse. And I really like starting out with these young horses and having them come up, and then you really know them, and I've been very lucky to be able to have some owners and people that can recognize that. And Christine Traurig is, while being the young horse coach, she is super, super on the same page with that. And, she does not, want to push anything where, it is at all a detriment to, future competition. And I really respect that. And it's very helpful to have somebody like that on the young horse program.
Yeah, I think it's important thinking about these things and thinking about the young horse stuff is kind of like the young horse program, and I think the competitions and stuff is very much for professionals who know exactly what they're doing, and they're not, I mean, how do I put this? And you're not schooling the movements every day and really hammering home a tight pirouette, for instance. I mean, just trying to think of things that would cause a young horse maybe to break down or to have a blow up or something like that. No, it's for horses that are good at showing, like enjoy showing themselves off, and that it's not a stressful thing, right? And that that they're very talented for the movements, and they have a rider who is also experienced and talented for the movements, that you're not practicing things over and over and over. That's more for the school horses, the older guys who maybe have already shown to learn on, right? I mean, when you can teach a talented horse something, you just try it once and it works, and you praise and you put the horse away in the stall. A flying change, for instance, that it's not a big deal. And okay, when it comes to the point that it doesn't work, and now you're trying to school the thing, then you say, no, this is not for a 6-year-old. This is not for a 7-year-old. I'm not going to do it. Right? You put them in the stall. You take it slow with them. But when you try your first flying change and it works perfectly and it's great, and you can praise the horse, put it in the stall, there's no stress there. Right?
Yeah.
So I think people have trouble with it because they think of how sometimes some horses get stuck in a moment, or maybe don't have super talent for something. No, I don't think any of the program works for that kind of horse, that gets stressed from work. Right. And then a lot of people are saying this is not good for horses. You can't be, horses that are good for this program, you're not schooling, you're just playing all the time, every day, just playing. Like, let's do a change. Let's do a series of changes. Okay. And put them away. Right. And I think that's really important to understand that none of the trainers are at home with these 5 and 6-year-old horses doing 1,000 pirouettes or whatever. So, it's hard to explain and to feel that difference, but hopefully that helps to explain it to people that these aren't like you said, Endel, that it was the first time doing the St. George test at the show. it's fine for the horse. I mean, you make some mistakes, and that's fine too, and you work your way through, and nobody's punishing the horses, nobody's pushing them beyond what they can do. I've seen Lucky Strike; he's amazingly talented. I mean, I saw him, maybe as a 5 or a 6-year-old, and he can just float across the arena in half pass, and you didn't really have to teach it because it's in there. You just have to bring it out. So, I just don't like when people are pulling horses from young horse programs or young horse trainers because they think it's something terrible. I don't think it's terrible at all. It just, you have to, like we said, feel for the horse and design a good plan, and that's what a good trainer is all about, right?
Yeah, and I think that it's really, you look at those, really the ones that, dressage is a little bit, Lars told me this once, and he said, it's a little bit like one of those Chinese finger traps, like you have to want it enough, but if you want it too much, you get stuck and you can't get out, and I think the ones, the riders that really, and it's, and I constantly have to keep an eye on myself, and be my own trainer at home and watch videos of myself and, tell myself a lot of things that I don't want to hear a lot of times. And I mean, I had a 4-year-old that I really wanted to bring and do some of the young horse stuff that is from a very wonderful client of mine. And, she was so great. I called her up and I said, hey, listen, I think I can do it. And I think I can get him into it. But I really would like to wait a little bit, and my gut says that, he's a super horse, but I think we need to wait. And she was so good about going, perfect, and let's wait, no problem, and I think also the ones that are really successful at it, they, and are successful. You look at the ones that, are in the top part of those classes. It's not the ones that really, bang them through everything. It's the people that are way more methodical and wait and listen and run a clear program. And we really try to, the winners of those classes, they're not the ones that get after the horses too much, and you really start to see, and because you can start to see that these horses start to get produced into something, and I think the young, that's what people had, and I understand where people come from, and they're like, I just think that there's a lot of young horses that get pushed into these programs, and I can understand their concerns. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's too nice to do the young horse classes. He's too nice, and it worried me a little bit, and I got a little worried about it. Like, maybe I'm pushing him too much. Maybe this is too hard, but he really, I really, let my horse tell me a little bit what he was comfortable with doing and where we were, comfortable with working and everything. And I think it's, you have to listen to those horses, but, you start to see that a lot of these horses go through these young horse programs, Totalist was 5th in the world championships, I didn't even win, and it helps give you a goal and something to work on, and it helps give a little bit of a structure, and it's just a goal, a lot of the horses in the 6-year-old classes at the world championships, they miss a bunch of lead changes, and in a lot of ways, when you watch them and the judges, that are judging at that level, they totally understand, and they're not going to knock it that bad. They'll still give you a 9 for a canter if you miss some lead changes or a simple change or different things. They may hurt you a little bit on submission, but in a small part, because they're looking at the overlying viewpoint and on there and the gates and everything. So it is actually structured in a really nice way, and to really give, also goals for these young horses, that it's not just that, because I think in a lot of ways, if we didn't have the program and we didn't have these, rough goals and plans for it, then I think you actually have more people that force their horses to try to do more than what they can. And if you can start to say, okay, simple changes as a 5-year-old. Okay, schooling some lead changes as a 6-year-old, but the horses in the 6-year-old class at Lamplight, the winners sometimes don't get clean changes. I think I messed up 2 changes on my winning ride last year, and the judges make note of that, but that's not really the thing that really affects it. And the more I think that people can get understanding of these young horse programs and the development of the horses, they can start to actually understand it's not just, that you put the horse into a half pass. You can do a half pass on both sides, on a young horse. But if you don't actually have the scope of the gait before and afterwards in the actual classes, you get really hit hard on there, and because they start to say that's too much trick riding, that's not enough development of the horse as a future competitor, which is a super nice thing to start to see from a lot of these judges, and the more people start to understand this program.
Yeah. Well, Endel, thank you so much for your thoughts, and we really appreciate. We know how busy you are, and we hope I need a vacation from talking to you and hearing your schedule. So we hope you get a little bit of time off before we all invade South Florida again and get ready for the season. But as always, we really enjoy talking with you. Thank you so much for all your insight tonight. And if our listeners wanted to find you online, how could they do that?
My website is endelottsdressage.com, or you can message me on Facebook. My email is endelotts@gmail.com. Just Google me. You'll find me all over the place. Sometimes I'm a little hard to get a hold of here and there. I have like 500 emails I got to get back to. But I usually tell people just harass me and I will get back to you. It may take a week or two, but I'm working on that. I'm working on being better.
Oh, you do a great job. And thank you so much for your time, Endel. We always love having you on the show.
My pleasure. So thank you to be back.
So Coach Jen, you're going to actually tell us who the next interview is with.
Well, yes, this is something we borrowed from the Horses in the Morning show. It played earlier this month, but we thought this is something that is really kind of global. Everybody who has horses is going to have to be dealing with these sorts of decisions. So we had Dr. Rebecca Jimenez from the Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue Company or organization on, along with John Haven, who is the director of the Florida State Agricultural Rescue something. Response team. That's what it is, response team. So together they talked about things you should and shouldn't do during a natural disaster, fire, flood, hurricane, tornado. Things you need to do before and after, good resources to take advantage of. So I think this conversation really applies to anyone, anywhere in the country, even though John works for the state of Florida. A lot of what they talk about applies everywhere. And there are some good takeaways for people who are evacuating, but there are also some really good pointers in here for people who find themselves either choosing to stay and ride it out or being forced to stay and ride it out. So sit back and enjoy this conversation.
Sorry. All right, we need to get a little bit serious here. We have the Morse code going in the background, and we have one of our longest time contributors to this show. She has been on 100 times, and that is Dr. G is with us. Good morning, Dr. G.
Good morning from Georgia.
Dr. G is with the Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue, and it's been a while. We're so glad that you could come on such short notice today.
Well, I'm sorry that we're having to look out there into the Atlantic and look at a pending disaster, but I certainly am glad that you guys are trying to promote evacuation and talking to some of your listeners about what they can do to stay safe.
I got to tell you, and we'll bring John on here in a second, but I got to tell you that I think there were more horses moved in Florida than any other day in history yesterday, judging by all the Facebook posts and all the things we were seeing. So people are taking this seriously. Judging by the lack of water and soup in every store in the state, they're definitely taking it seriously. And you have a guest on that can help us with this today, too. Can you introduce him?
I absolutely can. I was very lucky to get John Haven. He's the director of the University of Florida's College of Veterinary Medicine. He has a special interest in hurricanes because back in June 2004, he had just joined the College of Veterinary Medicine as their director. And immediately afterwards, he had hurricanes Charlie, Francis, Jean, and Ivan hit the state. And of course, he is prior service military. So I'm an Army person. He's an Air Force person. We sort of make fun of them, Glenn. But apparently his Air Force training was sufficient, and he was very good about getting together with the Veterinary Medical Association, the State Veterinarian's Office, and they were very successful considering 4 hurricanes hit their state in 1 year. And since then, he has taken it very seriously. He has gotten training for his people. He has provided training within his state to firefighters, veterinarians, USAR team members, which you guys have a lot of USAR team members, by the way. I think you have 7 state teams. And along the way, he got on some technical rescue standards committees for the National Fire Protection Association, and is getting the fire service to take large animal rescue very seriously. Now, today, we're not really talking about large animal rescue. Hopefully, we're not going to have to talk about rescuing anything, because we're going to try to motivate you guys to get your horses, and of course your cattle too, but it's a horse show, so we'll talk about horses, out of the state of Florida and into safety.
All right, good. John, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, John, we were helping horses move a little bit yesterday with what resources we could dig up, and Facebook was going crazy. I don't know how people ever moved horses before Facebook, actually. But what are you seeing? What's your feeling? It does appear that people are taking this pretty seriously here in Florida, and I think thanks to Harvey, that's why that's happening.
Harvey was definitely a wake-up call for everybody. Florida sort of sticks itself out there in the middle of the ocean like a finger anyways. And fortunately, it's been since Wilma, since we've had a really hard hit. And Wilma was pretty devastating, especially down there in South Florida, which did have a fairly large horse community. And Wilma, if folks remember, actually strengthened as it crossed land and went out into the Atlantic. So that was a very unusual storm.
So what are you seeing? We were hearing about tons of horses that have been moving from South Florida, especially the Wellington area, up to our area in Ocala. So what are you seeing? What do you feel should be happening at this point?
I think, from what I heard yesterday, the Southeast Livestock Pavilion was full, and OBS was still taking horses in. I don't know what their status is this morning. I always do like to see them come out of the impact area. One of the rescues that we did for Hurricane Francis was South Florida horses that moved up to a facility east of Orlando but west of Tampa that it turned out was in a floodplain. And as the storm changed directions, what seemed like a great place to take the horses ended up with us getting 20-some horses out of near chest-deep water. So making sure that where people are taking their horses will, in fact, remain a dry and safe location. A lot of the injuries we saw when we went to Hurricane Wilma were barn collapse injuries. So again, if they're going to go to a facility and put them up, making sure that it's out of the storm path. Right now, that path is still kind of moving around a bit. Hopefully, it's going to keep moving back towards the east and out to the Atlantic, and we'll just get a good brush. But it's so big, it could still be pretty bad. So those that are putting them in barns, that is one of the ultimate concerns there.
Well, we always have that argument.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Jimenez, we've had this discussion 1,200 times. Do you leave them out to fend for themselves, or do you put them in a barn? This argument's been going on since horses and barns existed. So what did we determine?
I'll give you the short.
Okay.
I'll give you the short answer, Glenn. You're right. That is a huge issue, and it all depends on how much space you've got and whether or not, if you've got a 25-acre pasture with options, such as they can go into the runouts, they can go into the woods, they can go into a low area in the woods where they can choose, they are smart enough to take care of themselves. But if you're putting them into a quarter-acre paddock in the middle of an open field, they don't really have a choice. And so at that point, you either evacuate, which is my preference, of course, always. But if you're going to put them in that barn, you got to make sure, who was the person that built that barn? Is it well engineered? Is a structural engineer involved in the building of those barns? Some of those places in Florida are absolutely gorgeous and are very well built. Masonry structures with good overhead. But some of us, and me, myself included, I am the general engineer, the general contractor, et cetera, for my buildings around here. And I didn't find anybody professional to do that. So yours are a little crooked like the ones we built? Facility.
Is that what you're saying? Yours are a little crooked?
Yeah. Mine are just, mine are just running sheds. That's all it is.
Not up to code.
Thatch roofs.
No, ma'am. And in Georgia, you can do anything you want to as long as it's an agricultural facility.
Yeah, I live just north of Ocala and on 7 acres, and I've got a barn, and my horses will be out in the paddock.
Oh, you'll do it that
for
way?
their own
What kind of barn
safety.
do you
And
have? Do you have a concrete block or do you have stick?
it's slightly nicer than the one that Rebecca's talking about, but not by much. So they will be safer outside.
You know, the problem we
I
have at
will
our
say
farm,
that if-
I want to mention this because it's a problem we have at our farm and most Florida farms have. We have 98 live oak trees on this farm. So every pasture has live oak trees. The reason we take the chance on bringing them into a stick-built barn, I mean, it's pretty well built, but we bring them in is there are branches coming down all the time off these trees during storms.
Mhm.
Live oak trees are terrible for shedding large branches. And we're afraid of them getting
Yes, they
hit
are.
by the branches or these trees. You know, live oak trees just come down for no reason at all. So
Absolutely.
that's what we worry about. So in our case, you know, it's like one or the other, right? I mean, it's
True, and that really comes down to what is your, okay, so if that's your plan, what's your backup plan? If something goes wrong with the structural integrity of your barn, how do you get into it? Calling the firefighters in normal situations would be most useful because it's pretty dangerous to try to break into a collapsed structure. But honestly, where are the firefighters going to be after this hurricane? They're going to be saving people. They're going to be doing their job, which is human life first and animal life is after that. So do you have cutting equipment? Do you have friends with tractors? Are you going to be taking the pieces off that barn to try to get down to your horses? And that's the kind of questions we try to get people to realistically ask themselves. Are you prepared to do something like that? Do you have the equipment? Because saying, I need to go to Lowe's and buy it, that's not a plan. You've got to have it in hand, ready to roll with a plan and people who know how to use that equipment safely to be able to react to that. Otherwise, I say put them in a trailer and come north. Let me talk a little bit about, since many of your folks are coming towards Georgia, I just got off the phone actually with the Georgia Department of Agriculture. As you can imagine, we are looking very hard at some options for folks coming out of Florida. And they are updating their websites on the Georgia Department of, Glenn, I actually sent it to you on a PM on Facebook, what the link is in case you want to share that. They're updating their list of where people can go in Georgia. As you know, the state veterinarian's office made an excellent decision, in my opinion, to waive the requirements coming over the border of Florida to leave.
Do they still have to stop?
And
Do we know that? That's a question we had earlier.
No.
You don't
They do
have to
not.
stop. Okay.
They do not.
So I did go ahead and confirm with the state veterinarian's office this morning. Don't have to stop going out, but remember, coming back, there will be a narrow window of time to get the animals home before they reinstitute the standard policy. So if you don't have your Coggins, if you don't have your health check, if you don't have all the other parts and pieces, you won't be able to get them home.
Good point.
So
Absolutely.
that's got to be part of your plan.
Yeah, and they are putting together a list of some of the veterinarians here in Georgia so that people will be able to get health certificates to go back in as well. So there will be some excellent resources from the Georgia Department of Ag. They told me that they are already looking at activating their state EOC and getting the people that are going to have the answers to put that stuff out as much as possible. I know that they have also relaxed the requirements here in our state. Normally, we also check if you're transporting horses, but they're going to relax that today as well.
And Alabama has also reduced their standards for coming in.
Good. So, all right. So now the horses that are left.
Can I talk a little bit about what? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the horses that are left here now, how do we mark them? What do we do?
Okay. If they absolutely just have to leave them, I'm a big fan of a freeze brand on the outside and a microchip inside so that you can prove ownership in case they end up in your neighbor's yard, down the street, those kinds of places. Obviously, good pictures. Today, one of my peeps that I was talking to this morning, she's a photographer, and she reminded me, please go out there today and get excellent pictures of your animals with you in the pictures so that you can prove these are your animals, and especially of all the little whirls and little special places on your horses. Glenn, I have some black walking horses. They look like everybody else's black walking horses.
Yeah.
So you have to concentrate on the places that look different so that if you ever had to prove ownership, you want to mark them. Some people have been using things like livestock crayons to mark their phone numbers on the side of the horse, braiding an ID tag into their mane.
That's what Jennifer does. She braids that. We have the chips, and she braids that in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So multiple ways of identifying your horse. Don't forget about their eyes. We're talking mostly about, 185 miles an hour, Glenn. Those are just crazy. That's a class 3 F3 tornado. And for minutes to hours, not just the 30 seconds that a tornado usually comes over. So we're talking mostly about flying debris and how can you try to protect your animal. Some people have been saying, I want to put a blanket on the horse. Well, if you could do that right before the winds get there, maybe so. Maybe there'll be enough ventilation, but I would be concerned that if you put it on the animal in 90-degree heat in Florida in the kind of humidity that we've got, maybe your animal would end up suffering more from the heat and humidity than it would how many injuries it prevents. But I do think that eye protection is a good idea. Putting some kind of a fly mask on your horses to protect their eyes. As we all know, a horse that is injured in his eyes is very difficult to treat and very expensive.
Also, if you have a
well,
chip,
that's where even here at the university, it's here at UF. We've got a great ophthalmology department, but it drives me crazy seeing people who's trailering down the interstate and they don't have fly masks on, but they got the doors down and the horse's head sticking out.
That always drives me crazy too.
It's 70, 80 mile an hour wind throwing objects into your horse's eyes.
Yeah, by the way, your dogs can get that too. I just want to throw that out there as their head's sticking out the back window.
That's true.
Hey, I wanted to say while we're talking about this, if you have a chip and you have not registered your chip, you can go to found.org and register any brand of chip for free. So that's one of the things you could do today.
You bring up an interesting point on the microchipping, because a lot of the microchips, especially if your veterinarian puts it in for you, when the vendor sells them the chip and then they resell it to you, in a lot of cases, the information is the veterinarian's information that's in the database regarding that chip. It's not you until you go log on and put your information in.
Okay.
So you really need to go update your chip info. Otherwise, it's not very helpful.
Got it. Now,
good point.
All right.
Good point.
So the I guess a couple of other things. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, Dr. Jimenez? And especially, we have thousands of horses now coming to Ocala. We usually, by the time a storm gets here, usually it's down to a tropical storm. We get a lot of wind. We get a lot of rain. We'll lose power. Obviously, if you don't have a hand pump, you got to get water ready for all those horses that are here. You better be pouring buckets of water.
That's exactly right. I always use the example of people say, well, I'm going to get the fire department to bring water. Well, 1,000 gallons of water, if you have 100 horses and they drink 10 gallons of water a piece each day, that's 1,000 gallons of water right there. So that gives you an idea of how much water you're talking about. And you really do need to have those resources ahead of time. The only other thing that I was going to add to the discussion on what to put on your horse would be, I do like the use of a breakaway type halter, just in case the animal does get loose. He can be more easily caught by anybody. I don't like leaving lead ropes on, but I do like having a breakaway type halter, either a leather halter, breakaway type, so that if he gets his head caught on something, it will break off of him. But that would be the clothing that I would put on my horse. With some leg wraps to protect him, something on his eyes, and a halter. That would be all the clothing that I would put on my horse.
Okay. All right.
I think the other thing that we really need to emphasize is that, we're talking about our animals, but don't forget that as you're moving your animals, if you're evacuating them, please make sure you've done your homework to do the maintenance on your vehicle and trailer before you leave, because if you don't have sufficient fuel and you end up getting caught in the traffic, you're going to be a statistic. And that can happen for many reasons. You can blow a tire. Do you have a way to deal with that tire? If you run out of fuel, if your floorboards give out, you really need to make sure you do some maintenance, fill the air on your tires, etc., before you leave. And if you don't know, take it to a tire place and have them check before you leave, because I would hate for people to be stuck in evacuation traffic because they had some maintenance problem on their trailer. And then you're standing out there with the wind picking up, and what do you do then?
I got to tell you, too, get your gas.
For those that don't evacuate,
go ahead, Joe.
If you don't evacuate, remember immediately post-storm, do you have the ability to fix any of your panels if they're down to help keep animals in or get them back in? But also remember, as the water level comes up, snakes and other animals are not going to be where they normally are, because they, too, are looking for dry places. So moving around, you need to be careful for yourself.
Texas fire ants, prime example.
Yeah, exactly.
Floating on rafts that they make themselves.
Yeah, that grossed us all out. I got more. We talked about.
I went into
I
went into my feed shed right after Hurricane Matthew came through, and I opened the door, and there was a nice little rattlesnake inside, and it was like, this is not good.
Welcome home.
And welcome home. Yeah. So he was up on a shed that's up elevated off the ground, and I'm still not even sure how he got in there. So again, being really careful. You just never know what you'll find.
All right, and don't forget about
a really good example.
I just wanted to throw this in.
I've got a really good example from Brevard, Glenn, if you've got one more minute.
Yep.
There's an equestrian center in Brevard County, and they actually posted last night on Facebook. They basically said, hey, we're hiring transport vans, and we're moving these horses out of the state. And those of you that own these horses, we hope, quote, nothing would make us happier than to have every one of our owners mad at us for wasting their money evacuating when the storm actually goes far away from our home and our evacuation site. And I think that's the kind of attitude we need to have. It is better to spend some extra money, move your animals, get them to a safe place, and then go, damn it, the storm went somewhere else, instead of having to deal with the kinds of things that you're seeing after Hurricane Harvey. That is an absolute disaster. There are horses that are suffering. There's people that are euthanizing animals that are very loved and members of their family because they failed to plan. So please, if you've got the opportunity, you've got a couple of days to still make plans. Get out of there, get on social media, get on websites, start looking around. Where can you put your horses? Where can you put your family? And do the right thing for you and your horses. You'll be able to sleep better if you know that they're in a safe place.
All right. I already mentioned, John, earlier. We'll end with this. I mentioned some resources. There's a Facebook page that is designed for people to find homes for horses, and they're all talking to each other, and it's actually kind of going crazy. It is the Florida Equine Evacuation Locations. That's the name of the Facebook page, Florida Equine Evacuation Locations. It is a private page, but they're accepting everybody immediately. So head on over there. There's a lot of posts on there right now about trucks and trailers and where to go and people offering their homes and their barns. John, where else can they go in Florida for this information?
Out on the Florida SART, the FLSART.org website is where we maintain all of our information for agricultural emergencies.
Okay.
And people can actually see what's on the page itself, and they can also register as a member of the public and get updates of what's going on. So that might be interesting.
Well, thank you both. Dr. Jimenez, what's the website for your organization as well? And by the way, I hope nobody has to use what you've trained them over the years to do, and that's rescue animals.
Oh, absolutely. What they can do is we are actually accepting people onto our page too. Normally, this is for professional rescuers. We consider it to be a study page. But it is on Facebook. If you type in Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue, you will get the group and you can ask to join. And they will ask you some questions as to why you want to be a member. But we've had quite a few people join recently. And we are promoting evacuation and places that people can go to and distributing that kind of information. Otherwise, they can also go to the Georgia Department of Ag website. They are actually updating that for all the sheltering information across the state by the end of the day. And their phone number is 855-327-6829.
Very good. Thank you both for joining us today. We really appreciate this. And let's hope this baby makes a right turn and just heads off into the ocean. That would be the best thing that could happen here.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
But you know what? And if it does, and all these
Glenn.
people have evacuated, they've had good practice, right? This is practice.
That it is excellent practice. That's exactly right.
Yep.
And thank you so much for promoting this, Glenn.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
So, Phil, for our Total Saddle Fit tip of the week, we have Caroline Roffman on. She's been on the show before and does a great job, but she's coming on the show to talk a little bit about, she just had a new baby. She has 2 little ones, and she's going to tell us a little bit about how she sort of makes everything happen. So we're making that our trainer tip of the week. And Phil, tell us a little bit about the Stretch Tech Shoulder Relief Girth by Total Saddle Fit.
Yeah, well, we wanted to bring attention to the shoulder relief girth. Lots our listeners will have heard about this before, but we wanted to, highlight the benefits of it. And this is a girth that helps your saddle, fit better. The girth sits in the horse's natural girth groove. It's cut back, so that it doesn't interfere with the movement of the horse and the horse's elbows. And, it's specially designed to not pinch the horse's skin. In the Stretch Tech version of the shoulder relief girth, it's built with a unique triangular elastic in the center of the girth that expands in proportion to the horse's chest for easier breathing and soft contact on the sternum. It uses an interchangeable liner system, so you can choose to have a leather liner or a neoprene liner, and very soon, if not released already, will be the wool fleece liner for easier cleaning and flexibility. You can purchase one liner with the girth or all of them, or later on you can decide you want to try the other liners, and they can all be sold separately. So you get your Stretch Tech shoulder relief girth at totalsaddlefit.com.
Yeah, it's a great girth. I use this one on my big horse, and he really likes it. He can be a little funny in the girth, and this girth has really, really helped a lot. Also, with another horse that I had that's girthy, they're way better with this girth. So I'm a super fan of this girth. I think it works really well. So I hope you guys enjoy, and if you have any questions, Justin at totalsaddlefit.com will help you out. Well, tonight we are so happy to have international rider, trainer, and brand new mom for the second time, Caroline Roffman, on the show. Caroline, welcome.
Thank you for having me again. So I think the second time.
We love it. It's always easier the second time. So everyone is really good the second time. It's like after you ride your Grand Prix for the first time, the second time is much easier.
Much easier.
So. Well, we have lots to talk about, and actually we're going to do a little change because of sort of the situation in South Florida. You're in Wellington, right? So can you kind of tell us, with the hurricane coming, what are you guys doing, and how are you preparing?
Well, it's one of those things that you can only prepare so much for. The news and the local, the locals and whatnot are kind of making our own plans according to this hurricane that seems to be heading straight towards us. We're trying to figure out where it's going to hit, what time of day, when. All these things are always changing. They talk about it's going to make landfall in Miami, or some of these islands that it's gone over. Some of them have bypassed it. It really just depends. But the usual stuff that we're doing is boarding all the windows, shutters, water supply, food supply, hay, grain for the horses, extra everything. It's really a little bit nerve-wracking. The feeling here is quite panicked. Lines for gas, stores are out of food and water. People are stealing plywood. You can't get plywood. You can't get nails or screws from the store. So it's a little bit overwhelming to handle, but I have been down here for quite some time and did the two hurricanes like 10 years ago. They were only hurricane category 3s, but still hurricanes with horses. So I feel like I'm doing everything I can. But you really have to prepare to be unprepared for it, honestly.
Just wanted to know what goes into the decision whether to, evacuate your horses and your family or not.
It's a really tough decision, and I know a lot of professionals have left. But at the end of the day, I have 18 horses in the barn right now. I have 2 kids. We have 4 dogs. We have, the list goes on of things, and it's just not a feasible thing to consider moving. We are in a CBS barn. It is built after Andrew, when the hurricane building codes all changed. It's in good shape, obviously. We take care of it. We're lucky enough to be able to have access to a house that has a hurricane room, which means cement, a foot wide cement walls and ceiling and stuff like that. So I'm not concerned at all, honestly, with my family at all. We're going to be fine. I'm pretty confident in that. We have generators. I just, of course, I'm concerned for the horses. They don't understand. It can be very stressful. So I'm spending most of my energy on them right now. But, I think if I could have 2 horses and whatever, I'd pack up and leave. But it's just not in the cards for us right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually why we're calling, because you are a brand new mama for the second time, right?
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 little girls now, 1 month old and 17 months old.
My goodness. Yeah. So you're already kind of not sleeping at all, I can imagine.
Sleep deprivation is normal. So no, I'm very lucky actually. The older girl is a good sleeper, and this baby's turning out to be the same. But yes, it does involve some sleep loss.
Yes. So trying, so that's even extra stuff that you would have to pack up, and you have a little one. Oh my goodness.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah. We don't have a car big enough, I don't think, to take all of the stuff and the animals that we would. I don't even, honestly, I don't know how we would be able to evacuate unless we just took us,
Yeah.
no animals.
Yeah. So on a happier note, it sounds like you guys are as prepared as possible. But the reason why we were chatting is, I find it really interesting. Trying to be a mom and be a rider, and how are you doing all of that? I mean, that's incredible.
It's not easy, but nothing is. And the choice for me was the right choice. I had spent most of basically my entire life from like 11 years old till I was, 27, horses, 12 horses a day, horses all the time. That's all I did. That's all I cared about. Which is particularly, I don't recommend that. I think being well-rounded is key for happiness and just everything. So for me, it was a great opportunity. I really wanted children, and it changed everything. And I think it changed it for the better. It's very different. They come first. It changes your day-to-day routine, the way you think about things. It's very different. But for me, like I said, it changed everything for the better. It was what I wanted, and I think it made me a better person. It takes a village. I could not do it alone at all. I'm very lucky. Ben is wonderful with them. I have close family, my mom. Everybody's very involved, and I have great people that work in the barn with us that are always happy to hold a baby, which isn't always what everybody wants to do. It's our horse show setup is a little different now. We have cribs and bouncy things, and you can find a pacifier just about anywhere. It's different, but it's challenging in a different way. I'm going to try now this upcoming season to get a little bit back more into showing again. So it'll be interesting to see how to manage that with 2 kids, but I'm confident I can figure something out. It just takes a little compromise and some creative thinking, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I see all the moms out there, and I think it's amazing, and to know sort of what it goes into being a professional rider and trying to get that organized. But like you said, it sounds like having a team is really, really important, and being able to do that. And living in Wellington, does that help because you're able to sort of show and not have to travel as much? Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, for sure. I think that being in Wellington is a savior if you have children, because I think at the end of the day, they do have to go to school eventually, and I'm not there yet, but when they do, if you're trying to put them in school in Missouri and show in Wellington, it's pretty much impossible unless you leave them. So it's really the only way that it would work with a show lifestyle for me. And of course, being able to be in your own bed at night for 12 weeks or however long the horse show season is and have your kids there is amazing. That's blessed to have that. Not everybody has that luxury. But for sure, I think that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And so how about, because I've not had children, I don't know the answer. So how about like coming back into riding fitness? Like how does that work? I mean, you were very fit. Obviously you're a professional rider, so before you had a baby, but just think of all the moms out there that are kind of coming back and have had their baby. What are some things you can tell them?
Well, the first thing I think that, it's a little bit different than, okay, of course your medical professional, your doctor has to recommend what's best for you. And I was not a high risk pregnancy. Of course, if you're a high risk pregnancy, it changes everything. But even the fact that I rode so late into my pregnancy was what allowed me to bounce back quickly. Some people aren't comfortable with that. Some people, you have to listen to your body and of course to your doctor. But I felt comfortable. I rode, I think 5 days before I gave birth. Of course, no, I wasn't riding 12 horses a day. And you could call it riding, but I was doing something, and on only the most saintly of horses. And I was really making sure to stay hydrated, all the things that were important. But basically, whether you're riding or not, staying in some sort of fitness through your pregnancy helps you bounce back. If you do the whole eat donuts, sit around the whole pregnancy, it's quite hard to come back from, I think. But I was able to bounce back, and like anything, you start slow. I started one horse, then two. You start as best you can. Of course, you're going to be tired, and I think it took me 11 days to get back on a horse after, so I really didn't miss much time. Yeah, didn't miss much time. But I was, like I said, I rode late into my pregnancy, so that's a huge portion of why I was able to just go back to it.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's great. And what is it like having two versus one? I can't even imagine that.
Oh, let me tell you, when I was pregnant with May, my first daughter, she, everybody was very nice and congratulatory, but I think they kind of smiled and thought like, it's going to change everything. Like, haha, it's going to be different, right? And it was, but it is 300 times more difficult with two. If one's not into something, the other is. If one doesn't need you, the other does. If they both need you at the same time, you need two. It's really very challenging. One child, I feel like you could manage. Anybody could manage having one child and maintaining their life pretty much the same, whether it's riding or whatever they're into. Two is very different.
It seems like it. It seems like it. I love it.
That's a challenge.
I love it. So any other advice for moms out there for riding and kind of doing the whole thing, like how to, balancing it all?
I just think people are so scared that it will change their lives and they won't be able to do it. They'd have to give up, let's say, riding. And at the end of the day, you don't. And it becomes, I'm very lucky now because my 17-month-old, she loves horses. So it's something that for now, we share together. She loves to go to the barn. She loves to brush them. She loves if she gets a chance to sit on them. So it's something that you don't have to give up and you can still do and have a career or whatever. And it, you miss maybe a little time riding, even if it's months and months, it's always there. It's like a bicycle. You don't forget that ride. You pick it right back up. But to me, I can only say what it was for me, and it was the right thing for me. And I can only recommend children, I think it's great. It changes everything in a good way. You didn't know you could love like you do when you have them. And it sets a lot of priorities. It changes them quite a bit. And I think, like I said, for me, for the better. I would assume for most people the same. So I just, if you want kids, you don't have to give anything up. And it's wonderful.
That is really cool. Well, here I really felt like having a professional rider come on and tell it, talk to us about it is so important because I was sharing with Caroline, I just took my niece to a dance class and I thought, geez, these moms like ride and work and it's really hard. And so I thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us. And I can't wait to see you back in the ring. I'll be your number one fan out there for sure. And Caroline, how can our listeners find you online if they have any questions or teaching, riding, training? You're still doing all that. So how could they find you online?
My website is lionsharedressage.com, and I'm on Facebook under Caroline Roffman and Lionshare, as well as Instagram. And you can find my emails and all the other things there.
Fantastic. Well, you guys be safe with those babies and the horses, and we'll be praying and thinking about you guys in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, as always, everybody, we love email and Facebook shout outs. Feel free to call us or get a hold of us any way you like. We always love that. And, again, we're with everybody with the hurricanes. And as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Just like us on Facebook, search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you guys in a couple weeks.